In the heart of the 19th century, a time when the American West was still largely untamed and sprawling mountain ranges posed formidable barriers, lived men who were masters of their environment, the ingenious mountain men. These weren't just rugged individuals. They were pioneers of practical survival, their lives a testament to resourcefulness and an intimate knowledge of the wild. Today, we're diving deep into their astonishing travel tricks, methods that allowed them to navigate, survive, and even thrive in some of the most unforgiving landscapes on Earth. Prepare to be amazed by the sheer ingenuity of these forgotten masters. Chapter 1. The Art of the Trail. Beyond the map. For the 19th century mountain man, a map was often a luxury, or at best, a crude approximation. Their true maps were etched into their minds. The lay of the land, the flow of rivers, the rise and fall of mountain passes. They developed an almost superhuman sense of direction, relying on a combination of innate talent and honed observation. One of their primary methods was terrain reading. They could discern subtle changes in elevation, the direction of water flow, and the types of vegetation to deduce their position and the most efficient path forward. A slight dip in the ground might indicate a hidden spring, a cluster of certain trees, a sheltered campsite, and the presence of specific rocks, a reliable landmark. This wasn't guesswork. It was a deeply ingrained understanding of geology and botany. Celestial navigation, though rudimentary compared to modern techniques, was crucial. The North Star, Polaris, was their constant guide at night, providing a fixed point of reference. During the day, they used the sun's position and the length of shadows to estimate direction and time. They understood the sun's arc across the sky and could mentally compensate for seasonal changes. For instance, knowing the sun rises generally in the east and sets in the west, they could orient themselves even on cloudy days by observing subtle changes in light or wind patterns often influenced by the sun's warmth. Beyond the stars and sun, animal trails were often their most reliable highways. Deer, elk, and buffalo created paths of least resistance through dense forests and over treacherous terrain. These trails were often well-drained, avoiding bogs and steep inclines, making them ideal for travel, especially with pack animals. A mountain man would learn to distinguish between different animal trails, understanding which led to water, grazing lands, or safe passage through a mountain pass. Following a bear trail might lead to a berry patch, while a deer trail often led to a stream. Furthermore, they employed wayfinding by feel. This involved developing an intuitive sense of direction, almost like an internal compass. They paid attention to the prevailing winds, the direction of water currents, and the subtle cues of the environment. This was developed through years of experience, constantly cross-referencing their internal sense with external landmarks until it became second nature. This feel allowed them to navigate even in whiteout conditions or dense fog, where visual cues were absent. Chapter 2. The Pack Animal. A four-legged lifeline. For the mountain man, a trusty pack animal, typically a mule or a hardy horse, was not just transport, it was a partner in survival. These animals carried the bulk of their supplies, making long-distance travel feasible. But managing them in the wilderness required a specialized set of skills. Loading and balancing a pack was an art form. An improperly loaded pack could chafe the animal, shift during travel, or even cause injury. Mountain men developed techniques for distributing weight evenly, using diamond hitches and other complex knots to secure their gear. They understood the animal's physiology, knowing where pressure points were and how to avoid them. A well-packed animal could carry hundreds of pounds for days on end, while a poorly packed one would soon be exhausted and prone to injury. They often used natural materials like rawhide and expertly tanned leather for their rigging, which were durable and flexible. Foraging for animal sustenance was as important as finding food for themselves. They knew which grasses were nutritious, where to find good grazing land, and how to protect their animals from predators. In winter, they would dig through snow to find buried forage or supplement their animals' diets with tree bark or dried berries. They also understood the importance of rest and hydration, ensuring their animals had ample time to recover after a long day's journey. Watering holes were scouted ahead of time, and if natural water wasn't available, they'd dig for it or collect snowmelt. Animal first aid was a critical skill. Injuries were common in rugged terrain, and a lame animal could mean the difference between survival and disaster. They carried basic remedies for cuts, sprains, and infections, often using natural poultices and salves derived from plants. They knew how to set a splint, treat saddle sores, and even perform minor surgeries if necessary. Their bond with their animals was profound, recognizing them not just as beasts of burden, but as fellow travelers whose well-being was directly linked to their own. They understood the subtle signs of distress in their animals and could often diagnose problems before they became critical. Chapter 3. Ingenious Tools and Gear. More than meets the eye. The mountain man's gear was minimalist but incredibly effective, each item serving multiple purposes. They were masters of improvisation, turning natural resources into essential tools. The tomahawk, for instance, wasn't just a weapon. It was a hammer, an axe for felling small trees and splitting firewood, a digging tool, and even a skinning knife in a pinch. Its compact size and versatility made it indispensable. They often carried a specially designed throwing tomahawk for hunting small game or for self-defense, demonstrating their proficiency in close-quarters combat. Knives were perhaps the most personal and versatile tools. A good Bowie knife or a similar sturdy blade was used for everything from skinning game and preparing food to carving wood and even minor repairs. They kept their knives razor sharp, understanding that a dull knife was a dangerous one. They fashioned sheaths from rawhide, often adorned with intricate beadwork, reflecting their personal style and status. The sheath itself was often treated with bear grease or other natural oils to protect the blade from rust and keep the leather supple. Fire starting was paramount for warmth, cooking, and protection. While some carried flint and steel, others relied on the more traditional bow drill or hand drill methods, demonstrating an intimate knowledge of friction and tinder. They knew which woods were best for kindling, how to create a spark even in damp conditions, and how to build a fire that conserved fuel and provided maximum heat. Often, they would carry a small, carefully prepared tinder bundle in a waterproof pouch, ensuring they could always start a fire, even in the most adverse weather. Shelter building was a skill perfected over years. While they often slept under the stars, they knew how to quickly construct lean-tos, wickiups, or snow caves when conditions demanded. They utilized natural materials like fallen trees, branches, and animal hides to create surprisingly effective shelters that offered protection from the elements and predators. They understood the principles of insulation and ventilation, ensuring their shelters were both warm and breathable. In winter, a well-built snow cave could be surprisingly comfortable, trapping body heat and shielding them from the biting wind. Their clothing was durable and practical. Made from buckskin, wool, and furs, it provided warmth and protection without restricting movement. They understood the principles of layering, adapting their clothing to changing temperatures and weather conditions. Buckskin, while supple, was also incredibly durable and wind-resistant. They often treated their buckskin with animal brains and smoked it to make it more water-resistant and less prone to stiffening when wet. Fur hats and gloves offered crucial protection against extreme cold. Chapter 4. Survival in Extremes. Battling Nature's Fury. The mountain man faced nature's wrath head-on, from blizzards to droughts. Their survival depended on anticipating and adapting to extreme conditions. Winter survival was perhaps their greatest challenge. They learned to read the signs of an approaching storm, seeking shelter before it hit. Snowshoes were essential for traversing deep snow, and they developed various designs, from simple bear paw shapes to more elaborate styles for long-distance travel. They knew how to build snow caves and insulate their clothing to prevent hypothermia. They also understood the importance of calorie intake in cold weather, consuming high-fat foods like pemmican to fuel their bodies. River crossings were perilous, especially during spring thaws. They learned to assess currents, identify shallow points, and use makeshift rafts or their pack animals to cross safely. They understood the dangers of hypothermia from prolonged exposure to cold water and would often build fires immediately after a crossing to warm up. They knew the rivers like the back of their hand, often having memorized the safest crossing points during different seasons. Navigating deserts required a different set of skills. Finding water sources was paramount, and they learned to identify plants that indicated underground water, follow animal tracks to watering holes, and even dig for water in dry riverbeds. They understood the importance of conserving water and avoided strenuous activity during the hottest parts of the day. They also knew how to build shade structures and protect themselves from the intense sun. They were experts at dry camping, carrying enough water for themselves and their animals to last for several days without resupply. Dealing with wildlife was a constant concern. While they were expert hunters, they also understood the importance of avoiding confrontation with dangerous animals like grizzly bears and mountain lions. They knew how to read animal behavior and took precautions to protect their camps and food supplies. They were also skilled at trapping small game for food and furs, employing ingenious traps made from natural materials. They respected the wilderness and its inhabitants, understanding their place within the ecosystem. Chapter 5. Food and Foraging. Living off the land. The mountain man's diet was directly from the wilderness, hunting and trapping. They were expert marksmen with rifles and skilled with snares and traps. Every part of the animal, meat, hides, bones, sinew, was fully utilized. Preserving meat. To sustain themselves on long journeys, they dried and smoked meat, and made pemmican, dried meat, fat, and berries for a high-calorie, long-lasting food source. Foraging. Their extensive knowledge of wild edible plants, berries, roots, nuts, greens, supplemented their diet with essential nutrients. Fishing. A reliable food source, they used simple lines, hooks, and traps, or even caught fish by hand. Chapter 6. Health and Healing. Wilderness Medicine. Without access to doctors or pharmacies, mountain men became their own physicians, relying on a blend of practical knowledge and indigenous remedies. Basic wound care was fundamental. They knew how to clean and dress cuts, set broken bones, and stop bleeding using natural coagulants like cobwebs or specific plant leaves. They understood the importance of preventing infection, often using heated knives to cauterize wounds. They also carried needles and sinew for stitching up serious lacerations. Herbal medicine was their pharmacy. They possessed an extensive knowledge of medicinal plants, using them to treat everything from fevers and infections to pain and digestive issues. Willow bark for pain relief, various herbs for tinctures, and poultices made from specific leaves were common remedies. This knowledge was often acquired through observation experimentation, and cultural exchange with Native American tribes. They knew how to prepare these plants into effective medicines, whether as teas, poultices, or salves. Dealing with frostbite and hypothermia was a matter of life and death in the harsh winters. They understood the symptoms and knew how to warm affected areas gradually, often using body heat. They also knew the importance of staying dry and well-fed to prevent these conditions in the first place. They'd often share body warmth in communal sleeping arrangements during extreme cold. Snakebite and insect bite treatment was also part of their repertoire. They knew which plants could reduce swelling and inflammation, and how to apply tourniquets in the case of venomous bites. They also understood the importance of rest and hydration to help the body fight off toxins. They were always vigilant for signs of dangerous insects and snakes, and took precautions to avoid them. Chapter 7. Communication and Community. The Lone Wolf's Network. While often portrayed as solitary figures, mountain men were part of a vast, informal network, relying on each other for information, trade, and even rescue. Rendezvous were annual gatherings where mountain men, trappers, and traders converged to exchange furs for supplies, share stories, and socialize. These events were vital for replenishing their gear, catching up on news, and fostering a sense of camaraderie. They were also opportunities to trade knowledge and learn new survival techniques. The rendezvous was a central pillar of their social and economic lives. Signaling and trail marking allowed them to communicate across vast distances. They used smoke signals for long-range communication, especially to warn of danger or indicate their presence. For shorter distances, they left cryptic trail markers, broken branches, stacked stones, cairns, or unique carvings on trees to guide others or convey messages. These markers were often understood only by those in the know, acting as a secret language of the wild. They developed a unique vocabulary of signs and symbols, allowing them to leave messages about dangers, game trails, or good camping spots. Knowledge sharing was informal but constant. Experienced mountain men mentored younger ones, passing on their hard-won wisdom about trapping, hunting, navigation, and survival. This oral tradition was crucial for the continuation of their way of life. Stories around the campfire were not just entertainment. They were lessons in survival, filled with cautionary tales and practical advice. Trade and bartering were essential for acquiring goods they couldn't produce themselves, such as ammunition, tools, and certain luxuries. They developed strong relationships with Native American tribes, exchanging furs and goods for knowledge, guidance, and sometimes even shelter. These relationships were built on mutual respect and necessity. They understood the value of fair trade and often learned the languages and customs of the tribes they interacted with. Chapter 8. The Mental Fortitude. The unseen strength beyond their physical prowess and technical skills, the mountain man's greatest asset was his mental resilience. Patience and perseverance were paramount. Life in the wilderness was often slow, requiring long waits for game, enduring harsh weather, and overcoming setbacks. They understood that success often came to those who could wait, observe, and persist despite adversity. They cultivated a deep sense of calm in the face of uncertainty. Resourcefulness and adaptability were the cornerstones of their existence. When faced with a challenge, they didn't give up. They improvised, experimented, and found creative solutions using whatever was available. A broken tool didn't mean the end of a journey. It meant finding a way to repair it or make a new one from scratch. Observation and awareness were finely tuned senses. They constantly observed their surroundings, the subtle shift in wind, the behavior of animals, the changing light, gleaning vital information that could mean the difference between life and death. They were acutely aware of every sound, smell, and visual cue, living in a heightened state of sensory input. Self-reliance and independence were not just traits, but necessities. They were responsible for their own survival, making every decision and bearing every consequence. This fostered a profound sense of self-trust and confidence in their abilities. They were truly masters of their own destiny in the wild. Problem-solving under pressure was an everyday occurrence. Whether facing a charging grizzly, a sudden blizzard, or a broken leg miles from anywhere, they had to think clearly and act decisively. Their lives depended on their ability to assess a situation quickly and implement an effective solution. This mental toughness allowed them to remain calm and focused, even in the most dire circumstances. In conclusion, the 19th century mountain man was a true embodiment of ingenuity and self-reliance. Their travel tricks weren't just about navigating physical landscapes. They were about mastering the art of survival in its purest form. From reading the subtle cues of nature to forging unbreakable bonds with their pack animals, from transforming raw materials into essential tools to cultivating an unwavering mental fortitude, these men left an indelible mark on the history of exploration and resilience. Their legacy serves as a powerful reminder of what humans are capable of when pushed to the limits of their environment, and a testament to the enduring spirit of the wild. Their stories echo through the canyons and across the peaks, whispering lessons of adaptability, respect for nature, and the boundless potential of the human spirit. Perhaps in our increasingly complex world, there's still much to learn from these ingenious masters of the mountains.